The thing is, some people are pushing against their own personality and inclination. I mean, you have to have a certain mindset, even if you've never been exposed to technology, and that you have to have a mindset that enables you to fit in, like you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how technical. If you don't have that mindset, you will struggle your whole life in the industry. So a lot of people are pushing themselves when maybe they should be a teacher, maybe they should be a painter or something, or a plumber. They should, but you're exactly right. They're chasing the money.
The digital tides are turning in South Africa. Here, the code dictates the very fabric of the days to come, written line by line. Join me as we unveil the stories and decode secrets shaping this digital revolution. Discover hidden careers and unlock your inner tech potential. I'm your host, the Black Cicada. This is Binary Talk, your gateway to the future of tech, right here in Mzansi. Okay, you can start by saying who you are and what you do.
My name is Justin Lovell. I do integration and data management, which goes hand in hand with the integration, because when you have a system and you want it to talk to another system, you have to first understand the data and how it's managed so that you can link it together. Essentially, that's what I do, integration, data management, but obviously having come from a developer background. So we've had to build systems to do things, to know what systems to use, and then at times what systems to create to make what we need to happen.
You started with Delphi, being a Delphi developer.
Yeah, exactly. How that happened was actually one of, I think, my most favorite programming languages ever was Turbo Pascal. In my studies, when I was studying, we obviously did things like COBOL, C++, Basic. At those days, it was QBasic even. And then Turbo Pascal. I love Turbo Pascal. Obviously, it was synchronous. So everything had to just happen one after the other. What I loved about it is just the structure, the thought processes around it. And then why I'm telling you this is my first job then as a developer was Delphi. And Delphi was the next generation iteration of Turbo Pascal. So the concepts and the ideas and the structure and the way things fit together, Delphi just was the next evolution. Delphi was like the Visual Basic, of QBasic. It was that when they started putting user interfaces on, instead of just writing console code, you actually had a designer, an IDE, and you were doing things in it. So that's where Delphi came along. And I love Delphi. Delphi 3, it had full on everything in there. It was incredible actually what Delphi 3 offered. And then I did it for about 2 years.
All right. But then you transitioned to being a BI consultant. How did the two roles compare?
Yeah, so what happened there was I was a Delphi developer, and then before I became a BI developer for about 6 years, then I was doing work in the Microsoft stack. So before I wasn't even a Microsoft guy, I was Delphi. We were working on Sun Microsystems, so it's Linux and things like that. Not even worrying about Windows. And then obviously the next job opportunity came along. I was part of a developer team and we developed a global system. Took us about 3 years, and then we rolled it out in different countries. And that was all Visual Basic, using forms and SQL Server as the backend. So for, about 6 years of my life, that was where I was. And then once I left that role, I was looking for something else. And that was in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And business intelligence was like the flavor of the day. People were starting to go wild. It's like artificial intelligence. Everyone was going like business intelligence. This is what everyone needs. And so I decided to do that. And I was with Anglo American. I joined them and to try to do the BI data stage. But in order to do BI, we had to move data around and consolidate it now. So that's when I started more with the data.
Data management.
Yes, exactly. So like stepping away from like just developing screens and, controls and things like that, to now actually saying, okay, I need to know my top 10 customers, but I've got customers in 3 different systems. So how do I get that top 10 list from 3 different systems? Now, so in order to give you the answer, I had to first get the data from 3 different systems and then make sure it all matches together and then give you your top 10 customers. So then using the tools, what tools would we use now to pull data from these systems?
All right. What were the challenges that you faced as either the developer or the BI consultant?
So, data quality is from day one, has always been the biggest challenge. And because every developer develops his system for the input, they don't develop it for the output. So you ask a developer to give you a system, he'll give you a system. But can that system answer questions? Sometimes yes, but the trick was how you stored the data. To be able to query it easily. If you have to do like a whole lot of lookups and joins and that, it's crazy and it takes too long. So that was what I found, that the biggest challenge was data quality, junk in, junk out, and then how these different systems are all designed by different people, but not with the idea that one day all these systems should talk the same language,
Okay. You did speak about the integration, that you do some integration and how it works. But why would a business need the integration between all of these systems?
So in the good old days when we didn't have the cloud, let's say, okay, and then you had one server and you had typically one system running a company. Okay. But as soon as people started moving into the cloud, then multiple systems were available. So what happened is you had big companies starting to use different systems. So the company will use a CRM system, then they'll use a ERP system, and then they'll have a reporting, maybe analytical system. Now all these systems sit separately, so they got to talk to each other. They got to send data to each other. So integration became key, to do this. I mean, integration's always been there. If you think about it, it's sharing data. And even as humans, we've shared data. I think of a SMS, on your cell phone. It's integration, because you send a message out there and it's got to find its destination. That's integration. So it was just now the next evolution of systems and data and things like that. And the thing with a lot of systems in the past is that they were black boxes. So the data was inside, but you couldn't get to it. That was it. Unless you used the system, you couldn't get to it. So in the old days, we used to have to try go into like where the data was stored and try like build our own backdoor. I suppose it was we were hacking, but we were doing it legally, as it were, in the sense of the customer saying, "Get it out for us." But then systems realized that even though they've got to protect themselves, they've still got to make the data available. And that's where the whole concept of the API came in, where you can expose what you want to expose. You don't have to just open up like heart surgery and let everybody in. You just create endpoints and let people in when and how you want to. So most systems, like you said today, are like that. They design it that way. Whereas in the past, people weren't doing it.
So after all these years in the industry, what still keeps you passionate about data management and integration?
Sure. It's difficult because I'm tired now. I'd rather grow vegetables at the moment. I think what's always been important to me is communication and making sure that I understand what someone else says. And then when we do it, there's something beautiful that comes out of that. So the same thing happens with systems, and systems can communicate with each other seamlessly and something works. It's always great to see that something works. And also chasing the concept of making a difference. Am I making a difference somehow? And most of the systems that we work on are finance or sales or whatever. And you think, oh, what difference am I making? Because I'm just helping someone make more money. But then you've got to think of, if you help them make money, maybe it's their families and the dogs and the cats they support and things like that. Yeah.
I think DMIX is about 5 years now. How did that start? How did you visualize it? Did you know that one day you're going to be running your own company?
No. Look, when I started my career, when you had a job, you were kind of guaranteed that unless you did something very stupid or you decided to leave, that you would have your job, you know. So there was always that kind of concept of like job security. When I became a BI consultant, you know, when I made the transition to be a BI consultant, I then started working I was permanent employee, but I started working for companies who then hired me out. So they put me on projects. And then for many years, about 15 years, that's what I did. So I was working sometimes like every 2-3 months, I was working in a different company, doing something different. I was permanently employed, but I had exposure to many things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that helped me with the fact that I'm not really working for the company. I'm just doing the job, you know?
Yeah.
And then what happened is, to cut a long story short, 4 of us guys decided to start up our own company. So we did that. We started up our own company as developers, integration systems, even the BI side of things. And I was nervous because I've always been permanently employed, but then we just said, okay, let's do this. And we had some opportunities. And so we did. We started our own company in Bodeng. We had our little office there, Joburg. And then that ran for about 2 years. And then I think after all of that, we were focusing on many things. And then I just focused on what I do. And then I left and started DMIX. Because I had some clients and I thought, I'm not going to be permanently employed. What's the point?
Yeah.
So I just registered a company and started that way, you know. And then you realize that nothing's guaranteed in this world. Even those who have permanent positions, nothing's guaranteed. It goes back to what you asked me about the passion. You know, if you add value to your customer, you should be good to go, you know. But if you don't add value, just sitting around doing nothing, it's not going to last.
What were the challenges that you faced when you started or when you're running the company?
Sure. Yeah, challenges, Demakatso, that's a big one. I think it's time. You know it yourself, time. Because now when you have a company, not only is it the actual doing of the work, the technical stuff, it's also the managing of the company, the administration, the financing. And then when you've got various employees as well, making sure all that happens. And then also making sure that your pipeline is full, because you're not permanently employed. You need to make sure there's always work up ahead. So you've also got to be a salesperson.
Yeah.
So, you know, it gets to the point where you've got to delegate. And, you know, I don't want to grow too big into a big corporate, but at the same time, can't do everything yourself. So time is definitely the biggest challenge.
Okay. That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is. And a lot of taxes. That's another thing you realize, how much tax we have to pay on everything. But one thing I learned right from the beginning is when you set these legal entities up and companies, do it properly. Follow the law, pay your taxes. You don't have to wake up in the morning thinking that they're going to knock on your door and shut you down.
Yeah. So about the tax scale in South Africa, which skills or which tax skills do you believe will be most valuable over the next 5 years?
Yeah, integration.
Yeah.
If you know how to connect systems, that is the key. That is becoming a lot easier these days with a lot of companies offering like what they call connectors. So the systems, a big system will have connectors to other systems, as it were. So it's like kind of out-the-box connection. But yeah, I know a lot of people talking about AI, machine learning and things. But sometimes the work that we've got to do and connect things together, it's not as simple for a computer to figure out. And the reason being is exactly one of the other questions you asked me, is the challenges with systems. People build systems differently. At least these days, we've got things like JSON and XML which is at least the data structures are common, but there's nothing to prevent anybody from creating their own data formats, their own data contracts, the way they store data. If everyone built things and did things the same way, then it would be easy. But people don't, and people will never do that, because then there will never be competition, and there will never be new ideas. So I always think integration, and like you said, I think when you look at a system, being able to think in the background, how are they storing this information in the background? How does it work? Those are key skills to have. Obviously, technical ability. I mean, you can't execute anything if you don't know how to do it technically. But now, with these days of AI, now you can just say, create me a program that imports a file, and then it'll do it for you, and then you can tweak it.
Yes, I think you still need the technical aspect of it, because it may give you maybe a code that does not work, but if you are not technical, you won't be able to fix it.
Exactly. Yeah. And another thing, Democrats, like you've seen, especially with the security, because security is a massive thing because of everything on the internet. It's got to be protected, but it's still got to be accessible. That a lot of these AI components in that, first of all, number one, we're not guaranteed that they're following best practice. And if it's secure and if it has vulnerabilities. And another big concern I have, especially when these systems use libraries and that, is what are in the libraries. It's very easy to hide an Easter egg and those kind of things. So open source is good. If you can have access to all the source code and be able to review it, then you eliminate that danger. Yeah, I'm very wary about libraries and other things. Someone said the other day, their laptop, they couldn't install Windows 11 on their laptop because Windows said it didn't meet the right requirements, right?
Yeah.
So they asked me, what should I do? I said, buy another laptop. So they said, no, they don't want to do that and spend money on buying another laptop. They just got online and they downloaded this tool that, ran some stuff, and then it updated some stuff, and they were able to install Windows 11.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but what did that tool do on your computer? You've just given it admin access to go and override operational OS settings and everything,
Yes.
So now you want to save maybe 1,000 Rand, 2,000 Rand to sell your current laptop and buy another one. And then they can steal all your money.
Exactly. Because if you believe that this was, let's say Microsoft, we believe that they have security in place. We trust them to run their systems. But if they are compromised, that means we are all compromised.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And, you can't live in a constant state of paranoia. You've got to, at some point, just accept the risk.
Yeah.
But that's exactly it. But these days with, and even like people installing apps and all these kind of things, I'm so careful about these things.
Yes, just because they are on the internet does not mean they're secure.
Exactly. And what are the developers underneath, actually doing and capturing? So I'm happy to go, like you said, with Microsoft. I base everything I do off Microsoft. I don't try use too many open source things. Even with the code that we're developing, with Angular and that. I mean, it's tricky because some of those libraries as well we don't know. But at least it's open source. We could review the source code if we needed to,
So what do you believe universities are failing to teach about the tech industry in general?
The problem with the universities is they're still stuck in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The universities are not able to adjust their curriculums quick enough. Although you can't be on the bleeding edge of things, because every month there's new technologies and new things. But I think what universities are failing to teach people is practical experience, and also to be the analysis. I remember in school we used to have English and Afrikaans as subjects, and part of those subjects there was a test called comprehension, and they would give you a paragraph or two. And then they would ask you questions about what you've read. And I think that is the thing. It's the same thing with tech. Doesn't matter what tech. Who cares what the tech is? But are you able to ask the question and unpack what's happening? Because everything has to relate back to the standard principles. I mean, everything in our world relates to a 1 and 0 binary. So you can't get more simpler than that. So we must just, I think that's what the universities fail to teach. There's a lot of knowledge, but analysis and that ability to design, that's a big thing. Because you get technical people and they can do the work, but ask them to design a system and that's not a chance.
Because even sometimes the technology used, you do it now for 4 to 5 years, then after that, time has moved. That means what you have learned is no longer actually used. But if they teach the fundamentals, the analysis, and everything is the same, the structure is the same, just that the technology changed.
Exactly. That's the whole point. I mean, that's why we call it a programming language. Because at the end of the day, the goal is communication, English, Zulu, Xhosa, whatever. We've got different implementations, but the objective is to understand and accomplish it. So it doesn't matter what language. You've just got to learn how to implement in that language. But the concept of drinking something, eating something is universal, So exactly. Yeah, and another thing, I think what universities, maybe, because I haven't been at university for a long time, but another thing is, like I said, many people design systems to accomplish an objective, but sometimes you need to design a system with the ability to ask questions about that system. And that's where the AI stuff comes in. Make the way that you save your data in such a way that it's easy to relate the data to each other. Because if that data is easy to be accessed, then you can ask computers and AIs to analyze that data. That's why you'll see in like some of the table structures we've got, like when I went to university, relational database design was so important, so you landed up having like 200 tables in your system because the one table had status code and description. And then the other table just had the status ID, which linked to the status code. But now you can imagine, now you have a system with 200 tables linked together and all those relationships and all the lookups, all the I/O, the reads. And now if you can design a system where you just minimize that and you can read it in context, I mean, sure. Even with the modern processing power, if you still make it as fast as you can.
Yes, it reduces the latency for accessing the data and improve user experience also.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is a university or college degree necessary to make it out in tech industry? I mean, are they still important given the emergence of international certifications?
I do not believe, let's say, a degree will give one any advantage, except in a corporate environment that the person hiring you has no clue what you do and just looks at your, degree. There's no advantage whatsoever. There's nothing better than experience.
Yeah.
But I think you raised a good point. There's a lot of certifications available. So if you think of a 3-year degree and you spent those 3 years focusing on some key certifications, sure, you'd be far more equipped after 3 years than someone with a degree.
Yes. And it will also cost less because I think one module in the university you can do maybe 2 or 3 certifications.
100%. Elon Musk, I saw a quote from him the other day. He said that people are using like the MBA degree as a shortcut to jump themselves into the boss position. And you think about it, people who finish their MBA think now that they qualified. What have they qualified? They haven't run a company. Okay, true. They've had a lot of training and that, and we don't take that away from them. But there's nothing. You look at all these guys like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, All these guys were just guys who had ideas and executed the ideas.
Yeah. So it's actually based more on skill and experience than a degree.
But look, also you've got to understand what their objective is, because like you and me are technical, and we will most probably always be technical. There are other people who want to eventually sit in board meetings constantly and do no physical work. So those are the people MBAs and degrees are essential for, because they qualify you to sit around doing nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas with us, when we're 85 years old and we still have a brain and our fingers still work, we can still develop systems and make a difference. Whereas those people, they'll just be sleeping in the meetings.
So looking at our school system, do you think information technology should be included as a major?
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. There was a reason why, like, you had to choose a language like English, Afrikaans, Zulu, or whatever to major in. It was part of your base requirement to pass, because it was about communication with other people. So we need another thing, communication with technology, and that needs to be part of your base requirement. You cannot pass to another level if you don't know how to talk to people and you don't know how to talk to systems. I mean, it makes sense to me like that way.
Yeah. So when we grew up, the only careers that we knew was you can either be a teacher, an engineer, a nurse. None of them knew that these other careers exist out there.
Now, you see, it's difficult for me to comprehend that. I tell you why. It's because of just the way that I was brought up, in the sense that, like, from a young age, I mean, when I was in primary school, I wanted to, like, take things apart and see how it worked,
Yeah.
So when computers arrived on the scene, they weren't available like we have it today. And if someone had a computer, then that was like amazing. And so as soon as I remember I got my first computer from my uncle, who had a company, and then they were throwing out old computers, and I got one of the ones they were throwing out to take it apart and start learning, So before anybody had even told me about these things, I'd already figured them out myself. But you are right. If you grow up in an environment where you're not exposed to it, there's no chance that you can be able to, have a head start on things like that. But Demakatso, can I give you this piece of advice? If we're talking to people out there, if I had the opportunity to go back in time from when I started with computers, and I know what I know now, I would qualify as an electrician or as a plumber. I would not go into IT. Both of those roles are all about integration. It's still about integration. It's still about systems. It's still about connecting things together. Still about flow, maybe not of information and of other stuff, but from being able to be flexible, have your own company, small company. Those are the roles that enable you to truly be flexible and independent. You can see from IT, there is a constant drama. There is constant demand on your time, and you will never get away from it. Our projects sometimes span months, even years. As an electrician and a plumber, you're going to have a nice ring-fenced thing. You can get your job done, wash your hands, and walk away. There's a need.
Yeah.
If you find a good electrician and plumber, it's like a good doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an absolute need for it. People need to build houses all the time, and even with technology, they'll still need to build houses and have water coming in and solar panels and all that kind of thing. So now when I encourage young people, when they ask me for advice on what they should do, I really encourage them to go into IT. I encourage them to do those kind of things.
Thinking of young people, what kind of mistakes do you think they are doing when they pursue careers in this tech field?
I think there's a lot of illusion about, just like about university getting a degree, there's also this illusion about the tech field that, you're going to hit your first job, they're going to pay you a fortune, and then you're going to be part of another team, and then in like 2 years' time, you're going to be earning millions. And in order to get there, which some people are, it's a lot of time, hard work, sweat. So yeah, I think that's the mistake many are making. It's a very complex world, and it's very easy to make a mess.
I think that many are chasing the idea of money instead of skills
Totally.
to lead them to those big payouts.
Totally. And also another thing is some people are pushing against their own personality and inclination. You have to have a certain mindset, even if you've never been exposed to technology and that you have to have a mindset that enables you to fit in,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how technical, if you don't have that mindset, you will struggle your whole life in the industry. So a lot of people are pushing themselves when maybe they should be a teacher. Maybe they should be a painter or something, or a plumber. They should, but you're exactly right. They're chasing the money.
Yeah. For someone who's interested in a career as integration and data management, what kind of advice would you provide?
You have to love data. So you get hold of a spreadsheet, put your monthly budget on there, and then start asking questions about it, and pulling in the latest exchange rates. Just start working with data and getting data from different places. You don't even need fancy systems. Get an understanding of how you can pull all these things together. If you're excited about data and the questions that it can answer, then you're in the right space. With regards to studying and that, I think the universities and the IT degrees and they're fairly generic enough to get you in the right direction. But I think I would follow your advice by telling people to decide what they want to do. Do they want to lay network cables? Do they want to work on data centers? Do they want to be a programmer? Do they want to be a mobile programmer? Do they want to be an integrator? And then do your certifications in those areas. Don't just try and be general.
You did speak about using as minimal vendors as possible, like you're using Azure instead of AWS or Google Cloud. Is that a matter of preference besides security and so forth?
It is a matter of preference, but it's also a matter of necessity. So when most of your clients, run those technologies, there's no point in trying to, run on different technologies.
Yeah.
So, if you want to start from scratch, then, maybe a matter of preference. But my whole approach has been to stick with Microsoft. They've always managed somehow to keep on innovating and at least buying other companies and bringing them on board. And if you think of where we are and what they offer now, like on a kind of a single sign-on perspective, what you can connect yourself to, I think it's pretty incredible. There are different systems and there's like for like. Yeah. But, which person doesn't talk about, sending an Outlook message? And that's a Microsoft technology. So like we all say, I'll just Google it. There's no such thing. That is a technology, but it's just something we're also used to. So I just stick with Microsoft. And you're right. One day, if Microsoft disappoints us and get hacked, then I won't be the only guy in the boat,
Yeah. So back to data management and integration. How do you predict the integration of AI and machine learning will affect this field?
There's because as more and more systems standardize the way they design and the way that they communicate, I think there's more scope for, the artificial intelligence to be able to connect seamlessly and interpret correctly. I think technology is heading in the same kind of direction. With artificial intelligence, it's interesting to see that some of the things that the computers are doing at the beginning are drawing pictures and writing songs, more kind of on the artistic side of things. When it comes to our day-to-day things, it's tricky, eh?
Yeah.
To predict anything really. It's all about communications. understanding language, which is now some kind of seamless. And the other thing, Democrats, look, I don't really have an answer for you on this one because I'm not an expert. What I know, the danger, like with artificial intelligence, was we spoke about using these libraries.
Yeah.
We don't know what the library does if it's a black box, right?
Yeah.
So what I worry about artificial intelligence is that it needs context. It had to be trained. So who's the trainer? And what was the objective of the trainer? And what is the bias of the trainer? Now, if you ask any of these systems like ChatGPT, Bing, whatever, a question that it deems not worthy of response, it won't even attempt to give you a response, which is the danger, because everything is being contextualized. Everything's being vetted and qualified before you getting the output. And that is by somebody or a team of people. So it can help. But I would always be wary of, just like the internet, when you Google anything, you've always got to read a few things and make sure that what they're telling you is the truth.
All right. You spoke about CRM and ERP systems. What are the major challenges you faced when integrating between the two, such as Salesforce to Microsoft Dynamics?
The greatest challenge is API rate limiting. I think that's the greatest challenge, because both systems are going to protect themselves from abuse.
Yeah.
And so, now we need to do a lot of things at the same time. And now the system says, sorry, I'm too busy. Yeah. So that, I think, for me is the biggest challenge, besides all the other complications, but that's the biggest challenge. That's why we have to introduce the message bus approach, because we need a place to store our request. And if that request is not serviced, to be able to resubmit it. So that's my biggest challenge. And look, obviously, as the data centers and the infrastructure underneath these systems increases, so the rate limiting will also, scale. But you can see far too often we hit these rate limits. It's also an indication of our design. Maybe there's better ways to improve the design, to streamline things. Yeah, once you've developed something, to go back and redesign, we don't always have the luxury, because with a lot of the rate limiting, you can actually provision what they call like a private cloud in a way, but doing that with dedicated resources, only focused on not shared infrastructure. I mean, the costs go through the roof.
All right, we are nearing the end. Then another thing is, every day when I wake up, I'm just excited that I'm going to work, and every day when I knock off, I look forward to the next day. How do you keep the DMIX team engaged and enjoying their work?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to hear that's how you feel. Yeah, look, I think time is my biggest challenge. I don't think I do enough to keep, let's say, the team motivated and that. I've always been about if there's the job, we just got to get the job done, and driven to get the job done. I'm not particularly the greatest motivator. If someone doesn't want to do the job, then I'm like, okay, wow, So, yeah, I don't really know. I think, there could be more ways to motivate people in that. But, I think the main thing is if everyone knows what they're doing for the day, for the week, and you accomplish something, then there's a sense of, growth and forward movement instead of just stagnating.
Yes.
I can't micromanage. It's very time consuming. And then if you are micromanaging, then you might as well have done it yourself.
Yeah.
But you can't do things yourself. So, you have to leave it in the hands of others, And look, over the years, worked with different people and also different employees as well. And some people, you just, at the end of the day, can't trust them because they're not motivated themselves, And if they're not motivated themselves, that's a bigger issue than I can solve,
Yeah. Okay. This is the final question. What is the best and worst advice you've ever received?
The best advice I ever received was to buy Bitcoin, but I never bought it. Well, let me say I bought it at too late. Yeah, the worst advice was like when we started that company, the four of us, and in the one meeting, I said, please can I buy a server and leave it plugged in here at the office to mine Bitcoin? And the advice was, no, we don't have time and money for that. Imagine when you could still mine one Bitcoin. Eh? Yeah, it's crazy, Timakato. It's so, you know, in the early days, I remember that there was a guy, he bought a chicken burger and he paid Bitcoin for it, like, I don't know what, a couple of Bitcoin for his chicken burger. And that burger today would be like something like, I don't know, what, like 600,000 Rand. Yeah. No, that's one of the biggest things. I mean, I remember that meeting where I said, please, guys, let's buy a server here. We just plug it in at the office. We pay the electricity bill. And we just leave it connected to the internet constantly. And it just mines Bitcoin. Yeah, although most probably when I decided to leave after 2 years, then it would have been a big story. Who takes the Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
No, pleasure. Thanks. Some of the questions you asked me gave me something to think about too.
Thanks again to Justin. If you're interested in what DMIX does, check out their website at dmix.co.za. That's dmix.co.za. Until next time, keep your code bug free.